Danny's on.
This is a church.
Yeah.
Big shot.
Mr. President.
And you're not going.
Then you'd have to fill in.
Not bad.
Here's plan.
Or just can't eat during the holidays and then we'll be fine.
Is that it?
You get 3 for 1 deal on the cards?
Maybe.
I didn't really look at it.
Dollar General doesn't have a lot. Sorry, Dollar General doesn't have a lot.
The ones that's on the-
As long as they don't also get it at the same time.
I think it would take a lot of pressure to break it.
Sarah Fletch. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any additions to our approval of agenda?
Mr. Council President, I'd like to remove under new business item B, ordinance 655.
Zach too?
Yeah, we'll just, do that briefly.
Alright, can I get approval? Jim?
Motion so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Visitors be heard. If there's any visitors, step to the podium and state your name and address, and you'll be limited to 2 minutes.
For TZ 212 Elm Street. I'm just wondering if I can speak when we discuss the petition, or if I need to speak now.
What's our list thoughts? Doesn't matter to me either
I
way.
primarily just have about 9 written questions and just a couple small statements. Yes.
So do it now.
I think,
Yeah, I would just caution council that, public comment is not necessarily a time for back and forth or,
right.
but I'd be happy to, if you want to email me questions, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
So am I not allowed to then when we discuss it?
I don't care, what do you guys think?
Okay, opening the floor during that.
Alright, we can do that.
Thank you.
Is there any other?
Amy Fisher, 301 East Second, just making sure I can speak when she speaks since we did this together.
Yeah.
Bill Cole, American Bank Trust, 14 South Main Street. Didn't know if we could speak during 5/8 and making our fee.
Yeah. That's fine. You guys can all speak during that.
Sure. I thought it was simple, but
Yeah.
I guess.
No worries. Any other visitors be heard? If it's to either one of the ones that have been brought up, you can talk during that time as well, Jim.
James Gibbon, 46581 282nd Street, Lennox. I'm here tonight, I guess most of all, just to share a couple of things. This past year, I've been asked many times, how do you feel about carbon pipelines? And how do you feel about a prison in Lincoln County? And it's a big concern. And I just want to remind you that if you support taking wastewater from the proposed penitentiary site, you're basically saying that you're supporting the penitentiary being built in Lincoln County. And I have a problem with that. And so do many other people in this county. And I think that, I hope that you really think high and dry before making this decision. This decision is forever. It's not for just a week or a day, or a month or a year. It's forever. And I would think that you would want the public input with a vote. My gosh, I've had legislatures tell me, Jim, every vote you take, you're gonna win one friend and lose 2. And that's about the truth. If you want what's best for Lennox, put this up to a public vote. I really believe that's your best solution. And I know that I'm just 3 miles south of Lennox, but I own property along Cleveland, and so does my daughter and her husband. And I guess I feel that we have some input on this. There's been a lot of things that haven't been decided yet with this president, if it's going there or not. Senator Johnson just said from this area, is it going to be a holding institution for people that are going to be rounded up and sent back eventually to Mexico and other places? We don't know. So please reconsider, because I think if this was Canton with making of this decision, or Harrisburg, or somebody else, and you would be feeling like, hey, this is a real slap in the face. So I suggest that you vote no and refer this to the public with a vote. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jim.
Hi, Lisa Menko at 809 North Juniper. When we bought our house with a feeling that we were moving into a small town, that we were not going to do something of this nature. I don't know if we would have bought here if I would have known what you guys were doing with this. And I think it should be up to the people of the town to vote. And if the people of the town say no, then I think that you should do the same thing, because you do work for the people of the town. And that's their main concern, is the people. If the people in the town all vote yes, then so be it. But I think the people should have a right to speak. And I think by not doing that, I think that you really need to look at the power structure and really think about it, what you're doing here. Are you working for the people, or are you working for the jail? That's all I have to say.
Thanks. Anybody else? We'll move on to consent agenda.
Council, just a few items to note here. Item F, advertising the ash tree removal bid. If you have any questions, I'm sure Mitch can speak to that. The opening is December 19th, is that correct? So we'll have that up for bids during this week with your approval. Ordinance 656 is just updating some parcel numbers in our ordinances with regard to the rural service district. Again, that's the area of town that is rural in nature and continues to pay township instead of municipal tax after annexation. Then we have a letter of intent committing us to participate in Lincoln Minnehaha County multi-jurisdictional planning project for pre-disaster mitigation.
Hey Mitch, on the ash tree removal, is there anything we can do? I know we kind of discussed this in the past of if citizens have trees they want to remove that's on their property, to try to leverage the scale of, you know, us bringing in someone else. Because what's our options there?
We can sure, once we know who the contractor is, and with this, I would suggest we can get that information out to people that are, you know, wanting to know. We can put them in touch with those folks, and then if they can work something out with that contractor, which, you know, most of them are pretty willing to do that type of work, then they can work it out on their own.
Our hope is that they honor the unit price that we have in our contract, but they don't necessarily have to.
What about identification? Does that need to happen ahead of time so they know kind of a scale?
I think most contractors will take them, you know, one at a time, because it depends on where these trees end up. If they're in a backyard where there's a lot of overhanging things, you know, but I'm sure they'll have to look at each one individually and price them out with them. Depends on what obstacles there are, and I think for your guys' sake, to just be better off letting that be between the contractor and the homeowner. But we can certainly put them in touch, because that's probably gonna be their best, you know, price that they can get.
Right.
Yep.
If they're already mobilized here,
Yeah.
it makes more sense.
Yep.
Anything else on that consent agenda? Otherwise, look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Nothing for old business, so we'll move on to the banking RFP.
Council, you'll recall that we issued a new RFP for banking in November. All responses were received by the set deadline. All three local banks responded: American Bank and Trust, First Interstate Bank, and Security State Bank. I've included in your packet spreadsheet summarizing the responses from each potential vendor, as well as highlighting clear advantages in applicable categories. In terms of daily banking services, it appears as though First Interstate is our best option, with the rate on money market and sweeps slightly higher than the other two vendors. Investments are better off at American Bank and Trust and Security State Bank. They offer preferable products with higher interest rates there. You know, when it comes down to fees, the all three waive the vast majority of their fees for their business banking services. My recommendation, it is a light recommendation, it's not a clear preference to me one way or another. I think logistically, we're probably better off with just one bank, but it's really the council's prerogative. Some councils wish to spread that across all of your local banks, some wish to keep it with one. So we'll kind of leave that in your hands. But if the RFP data is telling us to go one way, it would be First Interstate for checking and money market and reserve funds at security or American Bank and Trust.
What's everybody's thoughts?
So we wanna hear
Can
from.
we hear the proposals from the individuals that are here?
Sure.
Go alphabetical.
Tom Birdie, American Bacon Trust. You already got our proposal in front of you. I just wanted to point out a couple items. Pulled all three RFPs off of the web along with the very well-written comparison between the three, and just had some observations that I just wanted to point out for your consideration. I did bring along some extra copies if you wanted to pass those around. One thing I did notice on the First Interstate banking proposal, though it is the highest rate, it's only good for 6 months. It does specifically say in there that it's an initial rate of 4.10, and then it will continue thereafter for 6 months. So it's only a 6-month rate at 4.10, the American Bank and Trust rate at 4%. We're offering that for a 3-year time frame, so there is no temporary on that. The checking account with First Interstate, 50,000 is the minimum balance in that. That earns an earnings credit, which is not interest. Earnings credit is not paid out to the city, it offsets fees. They're waiving all the fees, so effectively it's a 0% interest on those $50,000. American Bank and Trust would pay interest on all dollars, both in the checking account and in the sweep. The check orders really depends on the city's need. I do see First Interstate does have the checks as not being waived. That could be anywhere from several hundred to $7,000 per year. American Bank and Trust would cover the check needs for the city of Lennox for no expense, as well as the remote deposit scanners. They have theirs listed as $450 and $900. Not sure if shipping and taxes on top of that price or not, but if you need 2 scanners, shipping, tax, you're looking at over $2,000. American Bank and Trust, no expense on that. So I just wanted to point out the differences between the First Interstate and American Bank and Trust, and thank you for your consideration.
Your 4% for 3 years, what interval CD is that for?
It's based off of a float, which would be the Fed funds lower minus 50 basis points. So wherever the Fed funds goes up or down, it would readjust minus 50 basis points. And that would
So
be
that's
the
just for your money market or is that a
both the
CD?
money market and checking.
Okay.
CD rates, those, we have promos all the time. CDs just vary based on the deposits the bank looks for. Those are up and down all the time. The long-term strategy for those is, kind of the flavor of the day for the most part, but the deposits, when we look at banking relationships, those we do fix out on a long-term in many cases, and in this one would be a 3-year offering for that Fed funds lower minus 50 basis points, which would be 4%.
If we were hung up on the percent of interest, would your bank ever consider potentially adjusting that interest rate to meet competitors?
It's, as long as it would be mutually agreeable, yeah. It would, if the city of Lennox would come in 2 years from now and say, that the market conditions have changed a little bit, would you be able to go, adjust that spread on the Fed funds rate? You're not locked in, and the language that we have in there doesn't lock you in for the 3 years.
The initial percentage rate though, would you be interested in adjusting it?
Oh, could I ask what you're alluding to?
The percentage of interest on checking?
Like coming up with like a temporary rate, or? I'm not sure, or do you mean going higher than
So
that?
they're at 4% maybe. This is
That's where we're at 4.
And I'm looking at
4.1.
correct.
I mean, if you're looking like for 4.1 for 6 months and then 4% or whatever the spread is thereafter, that is something that our management did discuss, and we'd be able to provide that defaulting to the Fed funds lower minus 50 basis points for the 3-year time frame. If
So you
that's-
would come up to 4.1% initially and then drop down to 4% after 6 months to be competitive with the others, is that correct?
Effective rate today, depends where Fed
Correct.
funds is at that point, but yes. Any other questions?
John Bowler, Security Bank. I think it's a good time to put your business out for an RFP. I think, you've got 3 banks in town. Obviously, we all desire to have and grow our relationships in the community. And I think American Bank had pointed out a couple things with First Interstate's RFP in the best interest of the city. I think you look out and you say you want to protect from rates going down is what they are signaling today. And so, excuse me for a second here. It's a good way to start out a proposal. So all indications that rates are going down. The Fed has hinted that, although, who knows? I think we structured our proposal to give you guys a baseline, to give the community a baseline of earnings on your investments. We take that serious. We felt like we've been aggressive coming in. And, the one thing I would recommend you guys consider is, our bank's in town, my office is in town. If there's needs from our staff and our team, I think we can accommodate those pretty easily. Decision makers are short, and so if there's needs to change or rebid, we certainly can hustle that together too. So.
Can you clarify your percent of interest on checking? On the comparison.
Is your checking account interest bearing at all, or is it 0?
I don't have that printed.
That's okay, I just wanna make sure it's not inaccurate.
Our checking is 0,
Okay,
and then that requires the 100,000 minimum. And then our market max is the 1-year, 2-year variable. So basically, you use it.
What our sweeps will be accounted under.
Yeah, you use it as a sweep. Sorry,
Okay.
I was,
thank you.
like, of course we have a rate on our money.
Well, that's why it looked inaccurate, thank you.
The other thing to take note of is our bank keeps the money local. And many times, other institutions do what they call as reciprocal deposits. So with the city of Lennox, we would pledge our bond portfolio to secure your deposits. Many other banks, and I don't know the details of it, but many banks will do a reciprocal where you have $250 at your bank and you ship it out to other banks over the $250. So with our bank, we would pledge our bond portfolio to secure it. So the money's local. We're going to take those funds, lend it back out in the community. So I think if I'm local and I'm the city, I'm thinking, okay, where's our money going? You might give up some in yield, but safety and soundness is a pretty big deal. We've had a recent run on banks. You know, if it's a reciprocal deposit relationship, you know, where is it going? Is it FDIC insured? Maybe, but that doesn't always solve it. It could be hung up. So, don't know, we don't play in that pool. We, you know, we hold all of our money. We don't ship it off. We don't do reciprocals. We secure it when a client needs assurance above the 250 or the FDIC regulations. So. You guys obviously know we're pretty invested in the community. We appreciate the opportunity to open it up to an RFP. I really think that's a solid way to do business. You've got a number of banks in town. Maybe there'll be more. Who knows? But you know, the community wins when you get a couple of banks fighting over your business. That's for sure. So. As far as renegotiating, like you had asked, you know, is there an opportunity to revisit? Of course. That's a relationship to us. Somebody has a desire or a need, they come in and talk to us, we go to see them. Like, what are we up against? Or what are you seeing? Or what is your desire? And we listen to that and we go back and go to work. So.
Anybody got anything else specific for them?
Your CD rates, are they introductory rates, or are they?
Well, if you looked at our bank board today, they would not be those CD rates.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a bid deal. And of course, we're bidding this like a relationship.
So these are higher, correct?
Definitely, yep. And so, now with that said, if we get selected for one piece of business over the other, like the recommendation is, we're fine. We're not gonna, you know, as you can see, it's not an all or none with our deal. It's, you know, here's our price, pick it, a la carte, and so, but those are bid rates. And we, you know, we came up with that with a relationship price. Figuring all the competition would obviously be very aggressive in wanting to garner your business, so. That answer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You bet.
You bet.
Just had one quick other follow-up to that. American Bank and Trust is rated 5-star by our financial as far as any concerns about safety and soundness. We frequently go to that, so if any concerns about that, I guess is from you. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have one here from person? What are everyone's thoughts on, just think about the FDIC minimums being $250K for security purposes, and I'm sure the health of all three banks are good today. What are your thoughts on splitting it 3.5 million, 3.5 million, and 3.5 million between the three different banks for the CDs?
You talk about the 10 million, the 10.5, that's
Correct. Separate from the daily checking.
And you're still only 250 at each one.
Yeah, that would,
Correct, but if you had a security situation at one bank, you wouldn't have all your eggs in one basket, is what I'm getting at with that.
yeah, I would suggest that we take up that fund separately of this, because we have other options that we're still exploring for that.
So we're not discussing that today?
That's
We're not
not
discussing the
It's just,
CD,
just who we're gonna.
current, these are the current, what we already have.
the current reserve funds?
Yep.
Okay.
My apologies.
So are we going to revisit the 10.5 million at a different date?
Yes,
And choose a bank at that time?
bank or other
Okay.
investment source, yes. I think all these numbers will play into that decision, but there are other options available, like SD Fit, that we need to go through yet.
I really appreciate the representation of the two banks that are here this evening. I think that shows commitment.
Agreed. So do you want some, I guess, you mentioned the preference would be to have them together, but the willingness to get the best, I guess, what's the pain points with having them separated?
The only thing that would be different of having them separated, we've got different reports we're gonna have to pull, different statements we're gonna have to reconcile. If we do need to move money over, we'll have to wire it, more than likely. So those are really the only challenges. Like I said, it's not I don't think it's a deal breaker for us, but it just means there's extra steps to go through. And if we change accounts tonight as well, or you decide to move forward with a different, we've got to do so by a resolution later, but that would give us time to make whatever changes we need to make and kind of design that switch and timeline. So this wouldn't take effect right away. What we do is we start putting those pieces in motion.
So one thing I know, and this was back when Denise was still here, but she had mentioned that with First Interstate, having the statement not available until the third business day was kind of troubling at times. And I see the other two banks have it available right on the first day of the month, which might be a benefit to our finance person. I obviously work for a bank, so I feel a little weird commenting on a lot of this, but I feel strongly about keeping it with a more regional or local bank. Obviously First Interstate is somewhat regional, but they have lots of other banks across the Midwest even. I also, just kind of based on what John said about reciprocal banks, I'm not sure that that's necessarily a negative thing if a bank is reciprocal, because I think it provides extra insurance beyond what the FDIC provides. I don't know if American Bank and Trust is a reciprocal bank, I guess.
I'd be happy to
Yeah,
comment on that.
if you could.
I actually have another question while you're coming up here as well. I'd like to better understand, Lauren kind of brought this a little bit. I'd like to better understand, John talked about local support and the funding going back into the community. I'd like to hear more from you on that and maybe how that compares between you and Security State Bank.
Yeah, so with the deposits for the city of Lennox, all those would stay local. We allocate all those dollars to the Lennox branch, Bill's branch here in Lennox. All those dollars stay here local, go forward for lending efforts here local. When it comes to reciprocal, what that, and I'm probably the best guy at our bank to ask that to, so great question. What the reciprocal means is that it is, call it a trade of funds. So when we deal with a network such as IntraFi, IntraFi is a technology company that works with connecting banks to each other to be able to maximize FDIC insurance. And IntraFi can provide unlimited FDIC insurance for any member bank. To be a member bank, you have to be FDIC insured. So any place that picks up deposits within that reciprocal agreement is fully FDIC insured. So what a reciprocal means is if one bank and another bank have that reciprocal agreement, I'll send Lauren $250,000 of depositor funds, she'll send me $250,000 of depositor funds. No money is actually sent between the banks, it's a journal entry on the books that FDIC insures those funds. So dollars don't actually change banks, the dollars stay at American Bank and Trust, they stay local, they stay towards lending efforts in the community. It's just a reciprocal book agreement between the two participating financial institutions. So theoretically, you'll have multiple financial institutions, some in South Dakota, some outside South Dakota, providing the FDIC insurance, but you do not have an account with them. There is no banking agreement with them. They are merely providing the FDIC insurance. In the event of a failure, the FDIC covers those funds, and it's an instantaneous process associated with that. So there is no questionable, because the biggest thing, all dollars are placed in $250,000 or less increments, which maximizes the FDIC coverage, and there is zero risk of loss associated with that because all deposits in those reciprocal agreements are kept under the FDIC insured maximum.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
What's our current situation with who we're using?
First Interstate has checking and CD.
So they have,
We're with right now.
so they have all of it.
Correct.
So do we have any insight why they're not here tonight?
They were aware we're discussing. I guess to me, that narrows it down to me, to the two banks that are here this evening. That's where I'm at, so I think we can already move forward with that if everybody feels the same.
That was my thoughts.
I agree.
My thoughts are if American can match the 4.1, give them the checking and money market and give security the CD.
I'd be okay with that.
I support that as well.
So it's
Did you have a
checking
question, John?
Yeah.
Did you want to speak?
Yeah,
and
unless you
money
guys want to have a cage
Comment?
match.
I didn't know it was an auction, so hang on. Here we go.
Are you Mike Region or Jake Foley, Mike Tyson?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to go at that deal. I just want to make sare you guys understand how we collateralize this. You know, when you talk about the money staying local, you know, we're gonna have 6 experienced bankers in that shop. And obviously, we're very invested in Turner and Lincoln County. It is 65% of our business today. If you look at our balance sheet, 65% is Turner and Lincoln County. And so, I like our odds of lending the money here versus someplace else. 1. 2, we would actually assign part of our bond portfolio to secure it. You're not gonna go through the reciprocal 250 this, 250 that. And I realize it's a, you know, it should be seamless to a customer. I've never been down that road, but just instinctively I feel like, okay, here, you know, we're gonna send you a report that shows you what bonds are covering your deposits with us. There's no, you know, there's no gray area as to if something's falling apart. And then 3, I mean, if you're asking them to match, do we get that opportunity to match? So do we auction?
Oh, yes.
Do we I don't know, you know.
Can you authorize that right now?
Well, sure,
What would that look like?
absolutely,
4.2?
yeah.
I would be cautious to get into it.
I authorize it right here. If we're gonna get into an auction, sure, then let's go forward.
I think, counsel, by the terms of the RFP, I think we need to go by what was submitted. If we're going to stay consistent in our, acquisition process.
Right, that,
That probably makes sense.
I guess that was my point about, you know,
Matching the 401.
well, if we're gonna open it back up, then okay, then let's open it back up.
Yeah. But no, I think, I mean, there's nothing against either one of you. I think at this time, we wanna kinda give one portion to American and one portion to you guys
Yeah,
and see how things go, and in a year we'll talk again.
are they committed to building a new building in town? You guys gonna,
Actually, we're gonna probably do one, but we're probably gonna remodel on Main Street, so.
okay. Sounds new.
It will be new.
That sounds like a tax roll coming up again.
Yeah, there will, yeah.
There you
It
go.
might be cheaper to build a new one, not, but. So.
I don't think so.
I think we're ready to make a motion. If
Sounds
somebody
good.
wants to
Thank
make a
you.
motion.
So we're going to approve it at the 4% as presented.
Yeah.
We're still kinda, I'm just still discussing. Security feels more local to me. I feel like they've been more involved in, I mean, any kind of fundraiser in town, they're there, and, we have a lot of local people that are working at Security State Bank. I'm struggling a little bit with that piece of it, I guess.
What kind of money do we have in the money market sweeps? The delta in interest rate, what does that amount to?
I don't know. I'd hate to guess. This year,
I mean, we kind of,
probably earned us about 95,000 so far in interest. But if you'd like an in-depth calculation, we can certainly do that. Yeah, probably have it ready by the 23rd.
so,
That's Billy.
Kind of thinking with Brittany on it.
So, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I mean, I feel like, because I've met with Bill before, he's supported things in the community. I guess, I think they're both fairly local as far as, and there's staff at American that's also local. So I feel more comfortable splitting the business like we discussed. I think that if we're basing it on the proposal that's in front of us, the one that's gonna give us the best return on our investment is American at this time for the money market and checking, based on the fact that they have interest on the sheet in front of us.
That's where I was at too.
yeah, versus 0.
If we're basing it on this proposal, I
Yeah.
agree with you, Lauren. And I think we can, you know, when we discuss the 10.5 million, we can
Yeah.
discuss more at that
Absolutely.
time on
Right.
Yes.
supporting both things.
I'd make a motion to move the checking money market to American Bank and Trust, and to move the reserve fund CD to Securities State Bank.
We can do that at the maturity of that current term for the CD.
Yes.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
I
Opposed? Motion carries.
thank you for all the representatives here tonight, because it's really helpful to have you here to explain it more.
Thank you for opening it up.
We'll move on to the NSF agreement.
Council, I may have Mitch answer questions on this. He's been involved in more of the day-to-day back and forth with the NSF, but this is having to do with Central Basin 4 project. So this is, we wish to widen that crossing at Elm Street, North Elm Street, and the NSF. This is virtually the last step in the Central Basin 4 project. If you're up at that crossing right now, you'll note that the width of that new roadway is wider than the existing crossing at the railroad. So that crossing is currently barricaded and necked down to only allow one car at a time for passing. The agreement in front of you, consideration for tonight, would widen that crossing to match the new Elm Street width. As expected, this permitting and construction process is filled with a number of bureaucratic steps, and the agreement language is not always the most favorable to municipalities. There is some information in your packets from the city attorney on that. All told, the crossing will cost the city of Lennox about $150,000. That funding is still available in our financing packages from BNR. This is an eligible expense, so BNSF will be responsible for design and construction. We'll also be responsible for patching and tying into that new asphalt. I recommend a motion to approve the agreement.
Was this in the original plan with Central Basin 4 to move forward with this following completion?
Yes, but there was no solid number on it. I think we've talked to BNSF about widening this for about 4 years. Does that sound about right?
That's first reading.
Indeed.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with BNSF.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to the Garfield Street lot.
Council, this item is at the request of Lennox Area Development Corporation, request action be taken on the vacant lot loan owned by the city at 505 South Garfield Street. Joshua Chase from LADC was hoping to be here tonight, but had a family emergency on his way down here and had to attend to that. The lot's been owned by the city for some time. It's my understanding it was acquired to make way for a future right-of-way for a western-bound Fifth Avenue. City engineer and I do not believe that's the best route for that street. You'll recall that LADC requested this lot be gifted to that organization in lieu of a larger appropriation in 2025. They're willing to develop a residential property to that address, hopefully the school home, and thus add that property to the tax rolls. Just request guidance and discussion tonight. If you wish to grant that property at LADC, please provide that direction, and we'll start preparing the necessary paperwork.
Because it is a residential area, you know, fairly close to the school, what would be our other use for that, other than a residential property? So I don't really see the reason why we wouldn't move forward with this.
There's no other use.
We have to maintain it today, so that's costing us. You know, we've discussed this in the past. I'm in favor.
Can you remind us again what our appropriation would be without doing this land trade?
It's varied back and forth over the years. I think on the high side of 90,000, I think we appropriated 90 last year, probably in 19 and 20. 20 may have dropped down to 30. It was down to 30 for a few years. So what we appropriated for 25 was 30, under the understanding, they were understanding of our financial situation with the proposed ballot language on IM 28. So they worked with us on that, and it did us a solid, I guess, to say, on the budget.
So are we going to, have to pay them more in addition to giving them this land for this year?
Just
this
our,
coming year?
So we've already appropriated, or we've already distributed them funds for 2024. In 2025, we'll distribute 30,000 in addition to this lot.
Getting a property on that's gonna generate property tax is a good thing for us.
I think the style of home that we're looking at as well is just something that's missing in most neighborhoods right now. So.
We're in need of more affordable homes, and so I think it's a positive.
You need a motion?
It wouldn't hurt just to have a motion to grant that to the LADC, and then we'll start the paperwork. There'll be a deed and everything that has to be transferred.
Make a motion to deed the property at 505 South Garfield Street to LADC.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to action on petition under SDCL 920.
Mayor and Council, the City of Lennox received a petition by the registered voters of the municipality on November 27 at 5:25 p.m. That petition seeks to refer the City Council to action approving an agreement with South Dakota Department of Corrections adding a new men's prison as a sewer customer for action by the voters for their approval or rejection of the action. As means of background, municipal referendum are governed by SDCL Chapter 9-20. Going into further detail, 9-20-19 makes clear that administrative decisions of the city council such as this are not subject to referendum. Only legislative decisions are. Because state law does not permit it to be referred, the city council must reject the petition. So my recommendation would be a motion to reject petition for lack of meeting the requirements of municipal referendum under SDCL 9-20.
Yeah, we don't open
Yeah,
the floor, we're gonna, same process as visitors be heard. Try to keep it limited, state your name and address.
Hi, RTZ 212 South Elm Street.
To do that, you need to be.
I'm gonna get my printer to work. So in regards to the petition, I have some concerns and questions, like I had said earlier. One of those concerns is kind of exactly what you said about how it is considered an agreement, my main concern at this time is that the city entered into this agreement is telling the citizens of Lennox that we have no right to vote on this, and that it's an administrative decision. This should be a legislative type decision, and it's discretionary whether or not to enter into this agreement. City council did not have to do it. According to SDCL 9-48-32, it provides that the municipality may enter into a contract. This agreement seems to have a permanent consequences and character. The DOC is currently tied up in Supreme Court until spring and may not be heard until summer. With this ongoing litigation, it will not be done anytime soon. It makes this site an if and not when. So if this was a discretionary decision, or I should say, was this a discretionary decision to enter into this agreement or not?
What do you mean by discretionary decision? Yeah,
We
have a choice.
chose,
Yes.
right. So, the question then is, what improvements need to be made to the Lennox infrastructure to accept the wastewater? Has been risen and plans have been discussed, at different meetings. We have those 30-year plan or agreement plans, but have they been finalized? And if so, have they been presented to the citizens?
Of the upgrades?
Yes.
Yes.
We had a discussion with our engineer regarding upgrades on, what meeting that was, I think.
Would have been 2 or 3
About a month
months,
ago.
probably in late September, early October.
And those documents would be public, as far as you asking if the citizens would have access to them.
Yes.
I know that that's us telling somebody, to go out and look for them, and that's not what I'm trying to do, but to read the whole
Yes.
thing now. No, but it is available.
I think Mitch could touch on it. Do you want an explanation of what they are, briefly? Or no?
If you could briefly, that would be fantastic.
I think the other thing to note too is the engineer, our city engineer Mitch, along with his team, Stockwell Engineers, reviewed the updates that needed to be made and how that fits within the 10.5 million that we would be receiving because of this, taking on this new customer of industrial, it's just a new industrial customer. And so that was 4.5 million. If, to list the line items, obviously, he would need to speak more to that.
Council, again, just caution not to get into a debate or back and forth at this point. I mean, I can certainly answer questions as well if they're emailed and follow up on those.
And so, my next one is just, are you able to explain how this is an administrative action versus a legislative action?
Yeah,
by chance?
we're basically just taking on a customer to our existing,
We're not amending an ordinance or starting a new ordinance or anything like that, so.
it would open up a humongous can of worms, like, let's say somebody moved to town that half the town didn't like, let's say Donald Trump moved to town, and half the town wanted to object that. Then we have to put it up for a vote whether we allow someone to move to town. I mean, that's just an example of what you're asking.
So, one of my concerns about, within the recitals, that section B, it states within 10 miles of the corporate limits of the city. What does corporate refer to? Because the proposed location is approximately 10.4 miles from the edge of city limits, and then there would be an additional approximately 2.2 miles to go around city limits to get to the wastewater treatment facility.
And the agreement spells that out. Basically, they're gonna have to amend their laws is the most likely scenario.
Okay. And does that mean that they will have to also pay for that
Yes.
additional footage as well as, or mileage, as well as insure that? Because there was also verbiage about the city of Lennox having to insure that. And
None of the
From our
pipeline,
wastewater treatment plant to the prison, that's their responsibility. So any kind of insurance, anything that happens along that line is the state's responsibility.
Now, in order for them to get to that location, there have been a couple concerns that were brought up about that, which I mentioned to somebody else prior, that there were some contaminated soil, that may or may not be still considered contaminated. Has anybody looked into that? More specifically, I've been told it's kind of between where Jerry's is and then that pond or lake, whatever that's considered, and then also by Lennox. If they dig through that area, I know it's not going to affect what's going through the pipeline, but it's going to essentially disturb the ground. At which point then, do we have anything planned in that placement, or does that fall on the DOC?
Placement of that pipeline is the Department of Corrections responsibility, so that would fall on the state.
And because the connection is going to be on the southwest side of town, you know, my assumption would be they're not going to go through underneath Jerry's, near Jerry's, through our new residential area. My assumption is it would be in the ditch along Old 44, you know, cross the interstate, come along the ditch, and hopefully disturb as little residential property as possible.
Okay. So I had asked at the last city meeting privately if there was a proposed pipeline route at that time, and there was not. Have we seen or heard anything since then?
No.
We have not.
we have it, I guess, Nate,
That's fine.
do you have any?
Just-
Nothing solid.
Just questioning.
I know there have been locates called in, but I don't know specific spots.
And it is part of our agreement too, that our city engineer has to review any of their plans before they can move forward.
Okay. So then, I know in the past we've talked about the limits of what, the amount of wastewater that the DOC can send over. Can you remind me what those amounts are again?
They're buying capacity up to 175,000, and they pay a $6 per thousand for anything from 175 to 200,000 gallons a day. And anything above 200,000 gallons a day, they pay $9 per thousand. So they go above 200,000, they're paying a premium for that additional capacity.
And I was looking at a previous memo, I believe, November 9th maybe. Is that which one you're referring to? I apologize.
November
I think
12th.
right
November 12th was when we.
Is it right to be voted? But yeah, I think it was proposed or put on the doc site
Could be.
that day.
8th or 9th, yeah.
And November 12th is when we
Discussed, right? Okay. So, in regards to that amount of wastewater, the original reason why the wastewater treatment facility, was put into place and funded, was due to a threatened Topeka, shiner, that is residing in our waterway. Do we know if this new amount is going to stay within the parameters that were guided at that time?
Yes.
Yes.
Almost done, I promise. Next one is, can the city of Lennox terminate the agreement at any time? I know that the current agreement is termed at 30 years. Is that a possibility?
If they're in violation of the agreement, we can shut off their access.
Okay. And so, to part of that, then what kind of conditions would violate that can be terminated for that agreement?
So in the agreement, in the contract, there's specific parameters that have to be met, and one of those would be like our city administrator has to review any plans to move forward. And so if they're in violation of any of those, we have the opportunity to shut it off. If it goes over certain agreeable amounts, if there is things that are coming through that we agreed on that weren't going to, because they have their systems there that are filtering out a lot of sediment.
Yeah. So paragraph 8 of the agreement doesn't seem to set any limits, and I'm just wondering if they were given that exact parameter of those agreements.
I have to look through it specifically. You said in paragraph 8?
Yes, please.
So line item 8 refers to rates and charges and the base flow. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. So theoretically, that would be what would be their parameters, correct?
That's what they're paying.
That's the rate that they're paying.
That's,
Oh, the rate, okay. Is it maybe 12 then? Maybe I misspoke. I might have.
Which parameters are we speaking of?
I don't have my sheet, I apologize.
agreements,
More so,
Are you
what
speaking
what
more
exactly are
about-
the conditions? That we would, be specifically able to terminate? Would it be because they, don't follow the guidelines?
if they're meeting the agreement, and we provide them wastewater. If there's anything in the agreement that they violate, then
Okay, and I can circle back on this at another time and follow up.
And two, if our city engineer feels as though we're in a position where it's not meeting the agreement or we're doing something that wouldn't be under their guidelines, we can shut it off at that point, because part of this agreement is that our engineer has reviewed it.
So the other two things that I kind of have on here is related in a sense, but slightly off topic, but, in the event that we do accept these agreement funds, the citizens, want to be heard that a written plan needs to be, put in place for enforceable transactions. And this is kind of, going along with the discussion from the previous meeting of withholding $150,000 from the bank account, that was going to be, kind of dispersed to the CDs, from my understanding. Without having that in a plan, just seems like there's a possibility of being reckless with that.
Yeah. Completely agree. We will have a definite plan, and
Okay.
we've kind of directed Nate that, what that 150 was referring to is we don't want to lock, if we get the check, we don't want to lock that in a CD, that's now a bottleneck that prevents us from reducing the surcharges more quickly. So that's really what our intention is we want to put a plan together that's gonna reduce the surcharges at the appropriate rate that we can figure out, as quickly as possible.
And is that something that is going to proceed within the next, say, 10, 20 years? Not that that's probably gonna last that long, but, you know, if any of you were to step down from council, then, you know, is it locked in there, or can the next person just say, you know what? We got some other bills we need to take care of.
It can always change, yeah. I mean, there's nothing saying it's gonna stay that way.
We could pass, couldn't we pass a resolution that states that these funds have to be used for the intent of reducing surcharges?
Yes, and then a future council could pass a resolution saying otherwise, so.
I will say though, Laura, you know, we do master planning for all of our infrastructure, for our parks, for all projects that we do. Community members have an opportunity to call, email, come to meetings, and have their voice heard. It's not gonna be a one-time, we're spending all this money. It's gonna be a very gradual process, and so there will be more opportunities in the future to discuss, here's how I would like those funds spent, and what are you doing with them, and to question. And then there's a whole separate process for budgeting. And then we also, every year, we have an outside external company that comes in and reviews all of our accounting.
Okay. All right, and then, has the city council discussed the services that would be rendered additionally to the DOC in order for them to maintain order going forward? Just because at this point, by accepting this agreement, it does kind of essentially make us think about the long-term effects. You don't need to answer it, but I just want to make sure that it's still in the back of your mind that we do have a volunteer fire department and maybe a police department that needs maybe some more hires soon. And then as well as EMTs, because we don't know what the plan is going to be once they come out here. And then just in conclusion, I know that the thought is to just deny this today, but I wanted to also just finally say that there was a reason why when Harrisburg brought this up as well, that they did the same thing. Theirs was not as long of a contract or an agreement, but they did have a resolution on there because of the possibility of the how much permanent consequence and character that this has. My concern is if you make this where we can't change it later, is that we are stuck in this, not only as citizens where we're not able to vote on it, but we're not able to change it and possibly do anything to protect the city as well.
Thank you, Laura. I want to say too, I know you're speaking for several members of the community, and we do appreciate your research, your support, your questioning this, and being involved in city government, because we need more people like you. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I am by no means wanting to attack any of you. I've said that on numerous occasions. I just think that we need a lot more information from the DOC, and it's just not there yet. And that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anybody else wanted to speak on?
My name's Jeff Duncan, I live Poplar, but when it comes to this.
What was your address?
116 East Fifth Avenue. These pipelines and this sewage treatment plant, I mean, I've got a lot of experience with these, with pipelines, put a lot of them in the ground. I mean, are we responsible for the lift stations or anything like that? Is it just here? But what about 10 years from now, when they want expansion on the prison systems? And because it's gonna happen. I mean, if you just go by the numbers, all these new prisons, they're all expanding. Are we gonna be on the hook to, if our facility's not big enough, to expand our facility to accept them if they expand their prisons?
So that's what the escalator is for on our agreement, if they're exceeding the 175,000.
Then we just get
gallons per
paid by
day.
the,
Then we get paid more.
What if they put another 200 units in that system? You're looking at thousands of gallons in our system.
We made that escalator basically so that it's not affordable for them to do that. I mean, it'd be pretty expensive.
So they would have to stay within that, with the means of the original contract if it was to be feasible for them. They would be approaching us for a new agreement at that point, if that's what they were doing.
If they approach us for an agreement, and we have to, add on to our systems.
That's something we would discuss on if our capacity would be able to allow it. We would wanna make sure to protect our property, but also homes, et cetera, to make sure that that's something that we could take on. So it would be something we would revisit, just as we would revisit after the 30 years when this contract is up.
Yeah, and when you said 30 years, that's what because if you go by history, it's 10 years from now, they're gonna want to expand. That's kind of how it works. But that's what I was wondering, 10 years from now, if they say we're gonna do this, and, we're the state, you're just a little city, like it or lump it.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Lisa Menkel at 809 North Juniper. I did want to say one thing. I feel that it's useless to come here and talk, but I did want to have my peace of mind, so I could at least say that. I worked at a company called People Service, and we did water and wastewater for at least 20 subdivisions in Nebraska, Minnesota. We had another 20, 30 of them there, and we also had in Iowa. And I used to be in the administrative part. And what happens is I would get the letters to all the mayors from all the people of what's going on in the wastewater plant every month. And every month, we would have to go to a town meeting for each of those subdivisions and tell them what it cost in addition, what they were not expecting to pay. Different treatments, different chemicals, there's a whole bunch of different processes, even the drying beds. There's all different kinds of things to consider. Now, I know you said the lift stations are their responsibility, unless it gets overwhelmed and we need the stations on our end. That would probably be our side. It could happen. I've seen it happen in different subdivisions. I'm just trying to say that this is what I've seen in many, many towns. And I have documentation, if you want, I could call the company and send you papers and papers of monthly costs that it costs to run the different things that go wrong with the plants. And I just think with this big of a decision, I'm still going to say that, I think that the townspeople should have had a say. I know you say you can't tell them about every client coming in if someone's moving in. This isn't something that just affects one person in this town. This affects everybody. And I think that needed to be considered. And I think it was a very selfish decision. And I hate to say that, and I know I'm gonna make a lot of people mad at me, but I think it was very selfish that you guys didn't let the people take a vote. And I'm sorry, that's just how I feel. And I know it's not gonna go anywhere, but I just had to say my say on that.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Amy Fisher, 301 East Second. I can't say that I'm 100% for this, and I can't say that I'm against it, but I just don't think we've been told enough. If it's still in the court, it's not for sure. It'd be like paying for a surgery without lining a doctor up. So I think you're putting the cart before the horse. And I think we better, like you said, if Donald Trump was moving here and nobody wanted him, this isn't Donald Trump moving here. This isn't even the Penn moving here. It's just using their services. He's not moving here. The Penn is not here. We're just taking their services. So, because I don't want to forget anything, I wrote a few things down. I attended the November 12th meeting, and that's when you chose to sign this agreement. 2 people spoke in favor, while several were against. I observed from the back of the room that nothing was done when the citizens spoke for this, but every time someone was against it, an applause was given. When I'm watching you people, most of the time, I see most of you in your tablets or doing something else. Look at the people when they stand up here and talk to you. Show them that you're actually interested in what they're talking about. And I notice this a lot, and it gives off the vibe that you're not interested. You've already made up your decision, and you don't care what they say. And it was at that time when I decided that I would pass this petition, because I think the people want to be heard, not just you making the decision. The petition was given to me on Sunday night at 5 o'clock, and before I went to bed Monday night, I had 76 of the 78 signatures needed. That speaks volumes to me. Most people just want to be heard, not you guys making all the decisions for them. And I think that's less than 30 hours. Now, people didn't even get to sign it because I didn't feel I needed to go any further. It was that quick. The citizens of Lennox want to be heard, especially when it involves millions of dollars and a lifetime of an investment. When each one of you were sworn into office, you swore under oath that you would represent the citizens of Lennox. You swore that. My question to you is, if a petition has to be brought to you and signed in order for you to get to listen to the citizens, are you doing the job you swore to do? Let's put it to a vote. If you're confident that this is what the citizens want, put it to a vote. Let them decide. And if you're not confident the citizens are going to stand behind you, is when you're going to say, I'm going to keep my decision. And I think it's time to listen to some of the citizens. I don't come up very often and talk. I know a lot of people won't come up here because they feel like it's 8-on-1. And I think it takes a lot of guts to come up and talk. And it's hard to do it. And a lot of people stand behind, we just want the vote. It's not for it or against it. Let us vote for it.
Anybody else?
Mike Hoffman, 27673 Highway 11, Canton. Had no intention of speaking tonight. Last speaker reminded me some thoughts when I was here. I felt the exact same thing. When we were here last time, we got this. We got it under control. I said, there's a whole group of us been working on this for a year. And the comment, I'm just being frank, the arrogance, they came across it. We've done our homework. We got this. Pretty off-putting. We're offering, yes, this thing's gonna be in my backyard if it happens, which I really don't think it's gonna. But if it's in your backyard, I still feel strong enough that I'd be over here saying, pay attention to this. This isn't, they're not being truthful to you. They've lied to us the whole time. The gentleman that sat here Bruder there last week or last meeting, won't give you the information. He go, oh, well, we're in a lawsuit, we can't speak to you. The reason we sued them is because they wouldn't tell us the information. And the more this goes on, the more information comes out. I really, your job is to work for the city of Lennox, get that. You know, and I can compliment your, I mean, no, I'm sorry, I don't know your position, but for reaching out, that's his job. Reach out, talk to the state, and try to find you guys' income, way to make this thing work. But when you got into it and see what's going on, great job looking into it. That doesn't mean you have to sign on to it. There's a mountain of litigation, there's a mountain of things that haven't come to, you know, I'm naming the lawsuit, I can't speak on it. There's things that haven't been brought up yet, that I can't speak in the public forum on. I really, you know, like I was getting at, you guys are speaking for the city of Lennox, but this is gonna affect way more than the city of Lennox. This is in fact way more than the Lincoln County, Minnehaha County. This is gonna be a big deal. And I know you guys are looking at it, there's $10 million, we're gonna put that in our pocket no matter what happens where the prison's at. Guarantee you, it's coming closer. If and when that location gets shot down, the next thing they're gonna do is move it closer to you guys. And you signing on to this is signing you up for that. You know, they talk about lagoons and whatnot. They're not gonna do lagoons. They're gonna come closer, find a new spot closer to Lennox. My thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Nate, you wanna read the memo or?
We did already.
That's right. I guess we just need a motion.
I think we got clear direction from our legal representation that we don't really have a choice here. So I'd make a motion to reject the petition.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You need a motion to enter exec?
Yes, I'll move.
Second.
We'll take a 5 minute.
Good.
Thank you.